Okay, thank you, Paul, and good morning, everybody. There are several important outcomes from the Rio Plus 20 discussions, and sometimes it's not easy to get them because they are a bit written behind the lines or through the lines. As Commissioner Paul HOHNEN, who is the environmental commissioner in the current European Commission, says, it's not possible really to say if Rio was a failure or a success. It will be a failure or a success to the extent to whom we want it to be in the future, a failure or success, because Rio is a framework. It gives you kind of the boundaries, the terrain on which you will play your game in the next 10 years. But then, as Fanny and also Sylvain said, it will all depend on how we will translate those principles into actions. But from the more general policy-making point of view, the one thing that I was a bit surprised to find in the end in the declaration is that we still have SCP, Sustainable Consumption Production. Because if you look at least at the European level, how the discussion have evolved since Johannesburg till Rio, you will notice that SCP has been declining in the agenda priority for policymakers at the European level, and the concept of SCP has been put a bit in the fade, and new concepts like green growth, green economy have become the more trendy words. And it is not just a matter of terminology, of course, because behind each of these terms there are thinking, there are policy process, and there are objectives. For me, not just because I'm working in the Sustainable Consumption Production Unit in the environment, but more in general, finding back the concept of SCP and getting it again high in the political agenda, it is important because it includes the dimension of the consumption. Because a lot of focus, for good reasons, has been put on the production, and green growth is mainly about producing in a better way from the environmental point of view. But of course, production is not everything, and the consumption, as we know, it's sometimes the most important, one of the most relevant things. So again, putting consumption at least at the same level as production, it's an important message. And this links also with the issues related to consumers, consumer information, and all the other outcomes of the Rio Plus 20 declaration. And it is also important what Fanny mentioned, the focus on data, but we will probably discuss this later during this roundtable and also during the day. So from the Commission perspective, happy to find, again, SCP, happy to link it to green growth, because this gives a better and more consistent picture in which we can work all together.
Great, thanks. Now let's talk about what's going to change from here, what at the French government level, at the European level, at the international level, what you see, and Fanny's begun already with this story, what do you see the practitioners in this room having to do differently or in addition as a result of what's come out of Rio? What are going to be the changes as we move ahead? What's your agenda? I mean, you've already begun to cover that a little bit. I mean, are there other issues that you'd just highlight for practitioners? Michele, would you like to begin there?
Yeah.
Some of the practical programs that you're thinking of doing.
From the practical point of view, the Commission is working first at the European level, but we also started already the discussion at international level on this harmonization of methodologies that Sylvain was mentioning. In early 2013, we will adopt probably a communication when we will publish also 2 harmonized methodologies for the calculation of the environmental footprint for products and organization, which are, of course, heavily LCA based. And we will also start doing some further actions. We are discussing currently if we will link this to any specific policy, either at voluntary or at mandatory stage. This discussion has not been finalized yet, so I cannot already report on that. And we will also start doing actions related to data gathering, and how to make LCA data more easily accessible, both in terms from the technical point of view, but also from the economic point of view. And we have started a discussion at international level with all the major trade partners, so United States, China, Brazil, India, and all the others, Japan, China, in order to better synchronize the different approaches existing at international level on product environmental footprint, and it was agreed at that time to give the lead of this action to UNEP. So this will probably become part of one of the programs that Fanny was mentioning. Before addressing your question, I was tempted to make a joke that democracy is a dangerous thing, but I will not do that. From the business perspective, I think we need to differentiate to whom you speak and who is speaking to you. I would at least identify three different stakeholders. The big industry working in Europe, the small medium enterprises, and then industry producing from outside Europe, being them developing countries or OECD, non-European OECD countries. When you speak to the European big producers, they will tell you that they have been using LCA since at least 20 years, because for them it is a profit-driven business. Using LCA within their business gave them the possibility to make money by better designing their products, by saving energy, by saving materials. So for them it's nothing new. But they are scared now, not by what we are doing, but I would say by what we haven't been doing until now. Because when you look at what is happening in Europe, you will see that France, as Sylvain has said, they have been very proactive, introducing already a law on mandatory or voluntary, we still don't know, environmental labeling of products. But then Italy has just started their own scheme using a methodology which is different from the French one. And then Switzerland next year will present their own scheme with a methodology which is different from that one. And UK next year will start reporting for carbon with another methodology. So the trend is that soon companies will have to probably report for the same product using 28, because Croatia is now joining Europe, 28 different methodologies. And they are afraid, they are scared of that, because this is really red tape for them. This is going to increase the cost, and this is going to put a lot of troubles in the proper functioning of the internal market in Europe. So
but can't the Commission come in here and surely say that this must be central to the Commission's role here of ensuring policy coherence? Because without that, I don't think Europe will maximise its economic and innovation advantages, surely.
That is why the Council, which is where the members, the head of states are sitting, asked the Commission in 2010 to come out with these harmonised methodologies. But France is right that until there is nothing at the European level, each member state has the full right to develop their own methodology if that is it's necessary to achieve the political goals. So there is no question on that. But this is what the action that the Commission is doing. But again, talking about big industries, you will not get the same reply from all industries, because the proactive industry, which I was referring to before, are doing this. But those who have not been so much proactive, the laggard, they don't want this to happen. They don't want the comparison of products or the comparison of organization performances, because then it will be crystal clear that maybe they are not as good as they claim to be. And this links to the issue of misleading claims, greenwashing, and all the other discussion, where we think that LCA will play more and more a key role in really identifying which are the claims that can be trusted and which are the claims that shouldn't be trusted. For SME, the things is different. SME are already very much stressed for a number of reasons. The LCA, whatever simplify you can make it, it's still sometimes too complex for them. But at the same time, industries are using LCA to green their value chain. So more and more SMEs are already getting requests from their supplier or client to produce LCA data. And again, they would prefer, that is what they come to tell us, they would prefer, at least if they have to do that, at least to have a unique system in order to produce this data instead of having multiple ones. Then when you go outside Europe, you get another dimension of problem, because partly rightly and partly in a more instrumental way, countries say that by going this way, we will add a non-trade barrier, a non-tariff barrier to trade, which is partly, it's for sure not the intention of the Commission to do so, but it's true that it depends a lot how you implement a policy, if you will have this problem or not. And then again, this links to the issue of data availability, because we have seen it with the biofuel directive. By introducing life cycle concept into a policy measure which has international effects, we have put pressure on developing countries to develop their own data. Otherwise, they should have used the data that were used as default. And of course, not all countries have the infrastructure to do so. So this is where, for example, the work that UNEP is doing on capacity building is extremely helpful, because we can defend a policy based on LCA only to the extent that we also provide all the tools for European and non-European partners to be able to comply with the requirements. Otherwise, they will rightly say that we are introducing a trade barrier.